On a cold February night in 1997, a man named Mel Waters dialed the number for Coast to Coast AM, the legendary late-night radio show hosted by Art Bell. His voice was steady, but the story he told would go on to become one of the most enduring, terrifying, and debated urban legends in American history. He claimed that on his property in the Manastash Ridge area of Washington state, there was a hole. Not just any hole, a pit that seemed to defy the laws of physics, a void that swallowed sound, light, and miles of fishing line without ever reaching the bottom. This is the story of Mel's Hole, a mystery that sits at the intersection of geological impossibility, government conspiracy, and the deeply rooted American fascination with the unknown. Part 1. The Call from the Ridge. To understand the weight of the Mel's Home mystery, you have to understand the era. In the late 90s, Coast to Coast AM was the town square for the paranormal. Millions of Americans tuned in at 2 a.m. to hear stories of UFOs, Bigfoot, and shadow people. When Mel Waters first spoke to Art Bell, he didn't sound like a crackpot. He sounded like a concerned landowner who had stumbled upon a glitch in the matrix. Mel described a hole on his land, roughly 9 feet in diameter, rimmed with a retaining wall of brick. He told Art that the locals had used it as a trash dump for decades. They threw everything into it: old tires, rusted appliances, dead livestock, but the hole never filled up. There was never a thud or a splash. Anything dropped into the pit simply vanished into a silence so absolute it felt heavy. But the most chilling part of that first call wasn't the depth, it was the dogs. Mel claimed that his dogs, usually brave and loyal, refused to go within 100 feet of the hole. They would dig their claws into the dirt, whimpering in primal terror, as if the pit wasn't just deep, but wrong on a spiritual level. Part 2. The 15-mile fishing line. As the radio interviews continued over several years, the details grew more staggering. Mel, driven by a mix of scientific curiosity and growing dread, decided to measure the depth. He didn't use a tape measure. He used heavy-duty fishing reels and 80-pound test line. He started with 1 reel, then 2, then 10. Mel claimed he eventually lowered more than 80,000 feet, about 15 miles of line into the abyss. Even at that staggering depth, the weight at the end of the line never hit a floor. For perspective, the Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia, the deepest man-made hole on Earth, reaches about 7.5 miles. Mel was claiming a hole on his rural Washington property was twice as deep as the greatest feat of Soviet engineering, and it had occurred naturally. But the hole didn't just swallow line, it swallowed sound. Mel described shouting into the pit. In a normal canyon, you expect an echo. In Mel's hole, there was nothing. The sound didn't bounce back, as if the hole drank the vibrations of his voice. Part 3. The Dog That Came Back. The story took a turn from the geological to the supernatural when Mel recounted a neighbor's experience. According to Mel, a neighbor had a beloved hunting dog that passed away. Devastated and perhaps influenced by the local lore of the disappearing hole, the man decided to dispose of the dog's body in the pit. A few days later, the neighbor was walking through the woods near the ridge when he saw his dog. It was alive. It was wearing the same collar, but something was different. The dog didn't respond to its name. It didn't wag its tail. It just sat there, staring at him with eyes that seemed too aware. It was as if the hole had taken the body and sent back a copy, a vessel that looked like a dog but lacked the soul of one. This part of the story resonated deeply with the American public, tapping into the pet cemetery fears of things that go into the earth and return wrong. Part 4. The Men in Suits. As the Mel Hole story became a national sensation, Mel claimed the powers that be took notice. He told Art Bell that shortly after his radio appearances, he was intercepted on his way to the property by men in black suits and military fatigues. They didn't arrest him, they informed him. They told him the area was being closed due to a plane crash or environmental hazard. They blocked the access roads. Mel claimed they eventually offered him a massive lease, essentially paying him thousands of dollars a month to leave the property and move to Australia under the condition that he never speak of the hole again. For the conspiracy-minded American audience, this was the smoking gun. The government wasn't just aware of the hole, they were terrified of it. They were sealing it off, perhaps to study its properties as a weapon, a power source, or a gateway. Part 5. The Nevada Hole and the Sheep. Years later, Mel returned from his forced exile, or so he claimed, and called Art Bell again. He said he had found another hole, this time in Nevada. This second hole was even more bizarre. Mel described an experiment where he and a group of locals lowered a live sheep into the pit in a metal crate. When they pulled the crate back up, the sheep was dead. But it wasn't just dead, it had been cooked from the inside out, yet the wool was cold to the touch. When they cut the sheep open, they found something that sounds like the plot of a high-budget sci-fi horror film. Inside the sheep's body was a fetal-like creature that looked like a seal with human eyes. The creature supposedly climbed out of the sheep, looked at the men with a gaze of ancient intelligence, and then walked back into the hole. This story pushed the mystery into the realm of the truly out there. It suggested the hole wasn't just a physical void, but a biological womb or a doorway to another dimension inhabited by entities we couldn't comprehend. Part 6. The Reality Check. Geology versus Myth. To a scientist or a geologist, Mel's Hole is an impossibility. The Earth's crust is only so thick. At 15 miles deep, the pressure and heat would liquefy any brick retaining wall. Furthermore, there is no geological record of such a feature in the Manistash Ridge. Researchers and hole hunters have scoured Google Earth and hiked the ridge for decades. They found several holes, old mine shafts, dry wells, and natural crevices, but nothing matching Mel's description. No bottomless pit has ever been verified. Even the man himself, Mel Waters, remains a ghost. Investigations by journalists and skeptics found no record of a Mel Waters ever owning property in the Ellensburg area or having a marriage license or tax records there. Does this mean it was a hoax? Perhaps, but in the world of folklore, the truth of the story is less important than the impact of the story. Mel's Hole became a modern American myth, a campfire story for the digital age. Part 7. The Cultural Legacy. Mel's Hole changed the way we look at the ground beneath our feet. It tapped into a very specific American anxiety, the fear that despite all our technology, all our satellites, and all our mapping, there are still blind spots on the map. It inspired episodes of The X-Files, countless YouTube documentaries, and even a resurgence in hollow Earth theories. It remains the perfect mystery because it is unprovable. If the government covered it up, then the lack of evidence is, paradoxically, seen by believers as proof of the cover-up.
Part 8. The Final Word. The story of Mel's Hole ends not with a discovery, but with a silence. Mel Waters eventually stopped calling Art Bell. The property, if it ever existed, remains hidden behind the dense pines and jagged rocks of Washington state. Is there a hole out there that defies gravity? Is there a place where the dead come back to life and the government hides its darkest secrets? Or was Mel Waters just a master storyteller who knew that in the middle of the night, we all want to believe that there's something more out there? The mystery of Mel's Hole is a reminder that the greatest mysteries aren't found in the stars. They are found in the shadows of the earth, waiting for someone to drop a line and see how deep the darkness really goes. The saga of Mel's Hole is not just a story about a hole, it is a story about the Pacific Northwest's relationship with the unknown and the power of the human voice over a late-night radio signal. To continue this journey, we must look at the people who actually went into the woods to find it. Part 9. The Art Bell Effect, Theater of the Mind. In the late 1990s, before podcasts and social media, there was Art Bell. From his high desert studio in Pahrump, Nevada, Bell broadcasted a signal that reached millions of insomniacs, night shifters, and dreamers. When Mel Waters first called, the timing was perfect. The X-Files was at its peak, and the world was nervously approaching the millennium, Y2K. Mel wasn't just a caller, he became a recurring character in a national drama. His voice was calm, articulate, and carried the weariness of a man who had seen too much. This believability factor is what separated Mel's Hole from typical UFO sightings. He offered something tangible, a location, a measurement, and a physical consequence. For the American audience, Mel's Hole became the ultimate interactive mystery. Listeners weren't just hearing a story, they were looking at their own maps, wondering if that strange dip in the ridge they saw while hiking was the gateway to another world. Part 10. Red Elk and the Shaman's Vision. In the legend of Mel's Hole, one of the most fascinating figures to enter was a man known as Red Elk, Gerald Osborne, an intertribal medicine man. Red Elk claimed he had known about the hole long before Mel Waters went on the radio. According to Red Elk, the hole wasn't a natural formation or a trash pit. He claimed it was a bioterrestrial base. He spoke of a secret underground facility where non-human entities resided, and that the hole served as a ventilation shaft or an entry point for crafts that didn't use fire or smoke. Red Elk's involvement added a spiritual and indigenous layer to the story. He claimed that the men in black Mel encountered were actually part of a multinational task force protecting a truth so dangerous it could shatter human religion. While skeptics dismissed Red Elk as a fringe character, his vivid descriptions of the inner earth kept the mystery alive in the Pacific Northwest for decades. Part 11. The Impossible Logistics, 15 Miles of String. To truly grasp the absurdity of Mel's claim, you have to look at the physics. Mel claimed he lowered over 80,000 feet of fishing line. Let's do the math. The weight, 15 miles of even the lightest fishing line, would weigh hundreds of pounds. The friction of the line rubbing against the sides of a jagged 9-foot-wide hole would make it nearly impossible to pull back up by hand. The spool, a spool holding 15 miles of line, would be the size of a large truck tire. The depth, at 15 miles down, the temperature of the Earth's crust reaches approximately 400 degrees Celsius or 750 degrees Fahrenheit. Any nylon or organic fishing line would have melted or snapped long before reaching that depth. Yet, when Mel told the story, these details didn't matter. The American public didn't want a physics lesson, they wanted a wonder. They wanted to believe that somewhere in the hills of Washington, the rules of the universe simply didn't apply. Part 12. The Terraforming Theory. As Mel's story evolved, especially with the introduction of the Nevada hole and the sheep experiment, a new theory emerged among the coast-to-coast community. The hole was alive. Some theorists suggested that the holes were actually part of an ancient sentient machine, a terraforming device left behind by an advanced civilization. The idea was that the holes were monitoring the Earth's core, and the creature Mel saw emerge from the sheep was a biological drone sent to inspect the surface. This shifted the story from scary hole to planetary mystery. It suggested that we aren't the masters of the Earth, but merely tenants living on top of a massive ancient computer. Part 14. The Search for Mel Waters. The damning evidence against the story's reality is the disappearance of the man himself. After his final calls in the early 2000s, Mel Waters vanished. Journalists from the Ellensburg Daily Record and amateur sleuths searched public records for years. They found no property tax records for Mel Waters in Kittitas County, no birth or death certificates that matched his timeline, no record of the federal buyout or the Australian lease he claimed to have signed. Some believe Mel Waters was a pseudonym used by a local resident who wanted to tell a tall tale. Others believe the government didn't just take his land, they erased his existence. In the digital age, being unsearchable is the ultimate conspiracy. Part 15. The Modern Legacy. A glitch on Google Earth. Even in 2025, the mystery hasn't died. Every few years, a new coordinate surfaces on Reddit or 4chan, claiming to be the location of the hole. For a long time, there was a specific spot on Google Earth in the Manistash Ridge that appeared blurred or pixelated. While Google explained this as a simple satellite stitching error common in mountainous terrain, believers saw it as a digital cover-up. They argued that the government had forced satellite companies to censor the coordinates to prevent citizen scientists from finding the pit. Part 15. Conclusion. Why the Mel hole never fills up. The real Mel hole isn't in the ground, it's in the human psyche. We live in a world that is mapped, tracked, and sold to us in bits and bytes. We have GPS for every trail and satellites that can read a license plate from space. In such a world, the idea of a bottomless pit represents the last frontier. It represents the unknowable. Mel's Hole remains an American masterpiece of folklore because it challenges the authority of science and government. It tells us that despite all our progress, we are still standing at the edge of a dark cave, dropping stones into the void and waiting for a sound that never comes. Mel Waters may have been a hoaxer, a visionary, or a ghost, but the hole he described is real in one sense. It is a space where our imagination can run wild, far below the surface of the earth, where the light of reason cannot reach. The final chapter of the Mel hole mystery transitions from the radio waves into the physical world, where amateur investigators and hole hunters took up the mantle to find the truth hidden in the dense evergreens of the Pacific Northwest.
Part 16. The Hole Hunters, Citizen Science or Obsession. After Mel Waters stopped calling Art Bell, the mystery didn't go silent. It moved into the boots of local hikers. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, groups calling themselves hole hunters began organized expeditions into the Manistash Ridge. Equipped with GPS coordinates gleaned from Mel's vague descriptions near a transmission tower, behind a specific rock formation, these hunters spent years scouring the terrain. They found hundreds of anomalies, old dry wells, abandoned mine shafts from the coal mining era, and natural volcanic vents. One particular site gained traction, a deep vertical shaft found near a decommissioned radio tower. It was deep, but not bottomless. When investigators dropped stones, they heard a clack just 50 feet down. This was the recurring theme of the search. Every hole found had a floor. But for the true believers, this wasn't proof that Mel lied. It was proof that the government had filled the hole with concrete to hide the evidence. Part 17. The Pacific Northwest, the capital of the strange. To understand why the USA was so captivated by Mel's hole, one must look at the geography. Washington State is the home of Mount St. Helens, Bigfoot, and the first famous UFO sighting by Kenneth Arnold in 1947. The geology of the region is defined by lava tubes. When volcanoes erupt, the outer layer of a lava flow can harden while the molten center keeps moving, leaving behind a hollow, pipe-like cave. Some of these tubes can be miles long and incredibly deep. Is it possible Mel stumbled upon a massive vertical lava tube? Geologists say that while vertical chimneys exist, they cannot physically reach the depths Mel described. Yet, in a land where the Earth literally exploded in 1980, St. Helens, the idea of a bottomless geological feature felt, to many Americans, like a terrifying possibility. Part 18. The Vortex Theory, Science versus Spiritualism. As the mystery aged, it began to merge with New Age philosophy. Some researchers proposed that Mel's hole wasn't a physical hole at all, but a dimensional vortex. They argued that the 15 miles of fishing line didn't go down into the Earth, but out into another fold of space-time. This would explain why the sound didn't echo. The sound waves weren't being absorbed by rock, they were traveling into another dimension. This also offered a logical explanation for the neighbor's dog returning from the dead. It didn't die and come back, it fell through a luke and walked back out. While this sounds like pure science fiction, it reflects a very real American subculture that views the Pacific Northwest as a thin place where the veil between worlds is translucent. Part 19. The Kola Comparison, a reality check. To provide perspective on the sheer scale of Mel's claim, we can look at the Kola super-deep borehole in Russia. Time to dig? It took the Soviet Union 24 years, 1970 to 1994, to reach 40,230 feet, or 7.6 miles. Equipment. They used massive industrial rigs and specialized bits that had to be replaced constantly due to the heat. Mel's claim? Mel claimed a hole twice that depth existed on a private farm, held together by a simple brick wall. When you put the facts side by side, Mel's hole shifts from a discovery to a myth, but myths are often more powerful than facts. The Kola borehole is a forgotten piece of history. Mel's hole is a living legend that people still talk about at bars in Ellensburg and on late-night forums. Part 20. The Last Call and the Final Disappearance. Mel's final appearances on Coast to Coast AM in 2002 were different in tone. He sounded tired. He claimed he had been detained by authorities, that his teeth had fallen out due to some kind of radiation or stress, and that he was moving to a safe house. Then the line went dead. Since that night, no one has heard from Mel Waters. There have been sightings in Nevada and Australia, but nothing verified. In the eyes of his fans, Mel became a martyr for the truth, a man who lost everything to tell the world about the void. In the eyes of the skeptics, he was a man who told the greatest tall tale of the 20th century and then walked off into the sunset before he could be caught in a lie. Part 21. The Cultural Legacy, from X-Files to YouTube. The influence of Mel's hole on American pop culture cannot be overstated. It directly influenced The X-Files. The show often dealt with dark spots on the map and government land grabs. Outer Range, the Amazon Prime series, features a bottomless hole on a ranch that acts as a portal, a direct nod to Mel's story. And modern creepypastas. The Backrooms and other internet horror stories owe their DNA to the idea of an impossible space hidden in a mundane location. The story tapped into the American Gothic, the idea that underneath our suburban lawns and rural farms, there is something ancient, hungry, and completely indifferent to human life. Conclusion: the hole that never closes. The mystery of Mel's hole is a story about the power of the unseen. We live in an era where every inch of the world is digitized, yet Mel's hole remains ungoogleable. Whether it was a massive hoax, a psychological experiment, or a genuine geological anomaly that the government successfully erased, it served its purpose. It reminded a nation that the world is still big, still strange, and still capable of hiding a 15-mile secret in the middle of a forest. As long as there are people who look at a dark cave and wonder how deep does it go, the legend of Mel Waters will endure. Because the most terrifying thing isn't the idea that there is a bottomless hole in Washington, it's the idea that there might be, and we just haven't found it yet. This final chapter of the Mel Hole saga pushes past the radio waves into the realm of theoretical physics, local secrets, and the final haunting fate of the man who started it all. Part 22. The Singularity Theory, a physics nightmare. While geologists were quick to dismiss Mel's hole as a physical impossibility, a group of fringe physicists and theorists proposed an even more terrifying alternative. The hole wasn't made of rock, it was a gravitational anomaly. In the world of theoretical physics, a singular point or a micro-black hole would behave exactly like Mel's description. It would swallow light and sound, event horizon, appear bottomless because space-time is warped within it, generate heat or strange biological effects, explaining the cooked sheep.
If the Monastish Ridge sat atop a naturally occurring gravitational rift, it would explain why no thud was ever heard. The objects weren't hitting a bottom, they were being compressed into an infinite point of density. This theory, while wild, gave the story a hard science edge that fascinated the American tech community in the early 2000s. Part 23, The Shadow of Ellensburg, Local Secrets. To the people of Ellensburg, Washington, Mel's Hole is a bit of a local headache. The town is a quiet, university-oriented community surrounded by rugged beauty. When the story broke, it brought mystery tourists from all over the country, many of whom trespassed on private land and disturbed the delicate ecosystem of the ridge. However, if you talk to the older residents in the local diners, they don't talk about a bottomless hole. They talk about the Monastish mystery in general. They tell stories of strange lights in the sky, UFOs, and high-altitude military test flights from nearby bases. The region is a hotbed for black project rumors. Some locals believe the hole was actually a top-secret underground bunker entrance, one of the many DUMBs rumored to exist across the western United States. In this version of the story, Mel didn't find a hole, he found a door he wasn't supposed to see.
Part 25. Who was Mel Waters, the man behind the curtain? The ultimate mystery remains the identity of Mel himself. Many believe Mel Waters was a character created by a brilliant storyteller, perhaps a local professor or a retired intelligence officer who wanted to see how far a myth could travel. There are three major theories regarding his fate. 1. The witness protection theory. Mel was real and his story was true. The government moved him to a remote location, possibly Australia, as he claimed, and erased his digital footprint to keep the location of the anomaly a secret. 2. The performance art theory. Mel was an actor or a prankster. He played the everyman so perfectly that he fooled one of the greatest radio hosts of all time. He vanished because the story reached its natural conclusion. 3. The tragic end theory. Some believe the stress of the Men in Black encounters and the loss of his land led to a genuine mental health crisis, and the man behind the voice passed away in obscurity, taking the location of the pit to his grave. Part 25, 2025, and the hole in the internet. In 2025, we live in the era of total information. We have Starlink satellites, high-resolution thermal imaging, and AI that can detect structural anomalies from orbit. If Mel's Hole existed today, it would likely be found within 24 hours of a Reddit post. But that is exactly why the story remains so popular. Mel's Hole is a relic from a time when the world was still big. It represents the last era of American history where a man could stand on his own land and find something that the rest of the world knew nothing about. It is a pre-Google legend that refuses to be digitized. Final conclusion: the eternal void. The story of Mel's Hole is the ultimate American Gothic tall tale. It combines our love for the frontier, our distrust of the suits in Washington, D.C., and our primal fear of the dark. Whether the hole is a 15-mile deep pit, a military entrance, or a masterfully crafted fiction, it has achieved its goal. It has forced us to look at the ground beneath our feet and realize that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. Mel Waters once told Art Bell, "I don't know what it is, I just know it's there." That sentiment is the heart of the American mystery. We don't need the answer, we just need the wonder. As long as the Monastish Ridge stands, the hole will remain open in the collective imagination of millions. It is a mystery that doesn't need to be solved to be felt. It is the hole in the map where we can still put our dreams and our fears. The story ends not with the thud of a stone hitting the bottom, but with the silence of the line still going down, mile after mile, into the dark. Part 26, The Terrasites and the Living Void. In his final, most feverish calls to Art Bell, Mel Waters introduced a concept that pushed the mystery from geological anomaly into the realm of high-octane science fiction,
the terrasites. Mel claimed that the holes weren't just passages, they were the lungs of a massive subterranean biological entity. He described terrasites as small, translucent, multi-legged creatures that would occasionally crawl out of the Nevada hole. He claimed they communicated via a form of resonant vibration that felt like a low hum in the bones of anyone nearby. This added a terrifying biological dimension to the story. If the holes were indeed living, then every object dropped into them, the tires, the dead cattle, the 15 miles of line, wasn't just falling, it was being consumed. This transformed Mel's hole from a passive pit into a predatory mouth. Part 27, The Australia Exile, a narrative closure? Mel's story reached its narrative peak when he claimed the US government had negotiated his silence. According to Mel, he was paid a substantial monthly sum and flown to Australia, where he was given a new life and a new property. Why Australia? In the world of conspiracy theories, Australia is the land of the antipodes, the opposite side of the globe. If you dig a hole through the center of the Earth from Washington State, you don't actually end up in Australia. You'd end up in the Indian Ocean, but the symbolism was perfect. Mel had been pushed to the other side of the world to keep him away from the mouth he had discovered. However, Mel claimed he couldn't stay away. He returned to the US as a man without a country, living in motels and calling from payphones, a nomad haunted by the gravity of the ridge. This image of the exiled witness is what cemented Mel Waters as a tragic hero in the eyes of his listeners. Part 28, The 2025 Digital Frontier, LiDAR and AI. As we stand in the present day, the hunt for Mel's hole has been revitalized by AI-driven satellite analysis and LiDAR. Amateur researchers are now using algorithms to scan the Monastash Ridge for unnatural circular depressions that are invisible under the dense canopy of Douglas firs. In July 2024, a group of explorers posted high-resolution thermal drone footage of a specific cold spot on the ridge, a location where the ground temperature was 20 degrees lower than the surrounding soil. While geologists pointed to natural underground springs, the hole hunters saw it as the ventilation Mel had described. Even with 2025 technology, the Monastash Ridge remains a black box. The terrain is so rugged and the history of military testing in the area so dense that the truth remains just out of reach, protected by a combination of nature and bureaucracy. Part 29, The Psychological Void, Why Americans Love the Hole. The mystery of Mel's hole persists because it addresses a fundamental American anxiety, the fear of the unfinished map. The United States was founded on the idea of the frontier, the belief that there is always more land, more mystery, and more opportunity just over the next hill. But by the 1990s, the frontier was gone. Every acre was mapped by the GPS satellites launched by the US military. Mel's hole offered a new frontier, but instead of going west, it went down. It suggested that the greatest mystery in history was literally right beneath our feet, ignored by experts but known to the common man. It was a populist mystery, a story where a guy with a fishing reel could discover something that the Smithsonian couldn't explain. Final conclusion, the echo in the dark. So did Mel Waters ever exist? Was there ever a hole? If you look at the evidence, the lack of property records, the physical impossibility of a 15-mile deep unlined shaft, the cooked sheep with human eyes, the rational line says no. Mel's hole is almost certainly a masterfully told modern myth, a performance art designed for the medium of late-night radio. But the truth of Mel's hole isn't factual, it's emotional. Mel's hole represents the void we all feel in the modern digital world, a place where the rules don't apply, where the dead might come back, and where the government is hiding the real reality. It is the ultimate American campfire story. It tells us that the world is still magical, still dangerous, and still deep. As the sun sets over the Monastash Ridge, the wind whistles through the trees, making a sound that many say sounds like a human hum. Maybe Mel is out there, or maybe he never was, but the hole remains open in the collective imagination of millions. It is a mystery that doesn't need to be solved to be felt. It is the hole in the map where we can still put our dreams and our fears. The story ends not with the thud of a stone hitting the bottom, but with the silence of the lines still going down, mile after mile, into the dark.